Rawteur, what if I told you a movie studio could take John Wick, run it through AI, and 3 hours later, boom, you've got a PG-13 anime version ready to stream? That's not science fiction. That's what Lionsgate Vice Chairman Michael Burns is now claiming they can do. And they're not just experimenting with AI, they've actually gone all in. Lionsgate signed a deal with Runway, one of the leading AI video companies. As part of the partnership, the studio gave Runway access to its massive library of films and TV shows, including major franchises like The Hunger Games, Twilight, and John Wick, in exchange for a custom-built AI model that can repackage their content. Now, what exactly does repackage mean? Think a violent R-rated film turned into a family-friendly cartoon, or a gritty revenge drama softened with a new ending. Burns told New York Magazine, "Now we can say, do it in anime, make it PG-13, and 3 hours later, I'll have the movie. I can do that, and now I can resell it." In theory, this tech could quietly rewrite history. Let's say a studio wants to clean up an old scene, remove nudity, violence, or offensive language. Instead of calling in the actors or editors, they just generate new visuals and dialogue using AI, upload the new version to streaming platforms, and that's it. The change becomes permanent. Unless you personally own the original on disc, there's no record of what the film used to be. And this isn't just hypothetical. Disney already dipped a toe into this with Splash on Disney+. They used CGI to add digital hair over Daryl Hannah's butt to make the movie family safe. The internet roasted them for it, but it happened, and it was a clear signal that revisionism is already in play. Even Steven Spielberg, who once edited E.T. to replace the FBI's guns with walkie-talkies, later regretted it. He said, "No film should be revised based on today's sensibilities. I should have never messed with my own work, and I don't recommend anybody do that." Because if he hadn't reversed course, the only version of E.T. you'd be able to watch today would be the censored one. This is why Lionsgate announcement is so important. They're the first to make a public AI deal, but not the only ones playing with this idea. According to Vulture, insiders say every major studio, including Disney and Warner Brothers, has had conversations about similar tech. They just haven't gone public. And that makes this more than just an experiment. It's a potential business model. Cut production costs, sell the same story to multiple audiences, and quietly revise problematic content without debate. If that sounds familiar, it should. Kanye was one of the first artists to retroactively change an album post-release. Movies might be next. So what does this mean for us? It means the version of a film you watch today might not be the version available tomorrow. It means the past is editable, and unless you own a physical copy of an original, you might never know what changed. That's not just remixing, that's rewriting history with a click. Next up, a Florida man is fighting a $2.4 million fine from the FCC, and if his argument holds up, this could change the way government agencies are allowed to punish people. The man of the center of it is Fabrice Polynice, also known as DJ Paz. According to the FCC, he ran an unlicensed radio station called Radio Touche Douche in North Miami. Love the name. He was reportedly on air for just 22 days in 2023. Less than a month, and that was enough for the agency to hit him with the maximum penalty they could illegally impose, $2.39 million. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated, because Polynice isn't denying he was behind the station. He's not saying, "Oh, that wasn't me." What he's actually saying is, "You can't fine me like this, it's unconstitutional." And he may actually have a case. He's pointing to a major Supreme Court ruling from 2024, SEC versus Jerkeski. In that case, the court said that if a federal agency wants to impose civil penalties, in other words, fines that aren't criminal charges, they can't just do it internally. The person being fined has the right to a jury trial under the 7th Amendment. That means you don't just get a notice in the mail saying you owe millions. You get your day in court. Polynice says that never happened. He got a notice from the FCC. He tried to appeal, and the FCC rejected the appeal, all without a judge or jury. The same agency acted as prosecutor, judge, and jury, and then finalized the punishment. That's exactly the kind of enforcement the Jarkessi case called into question. And Polonice isn't alone. Earlier this year, a federal appeals court threw out a $57 million fine against AT&T, saying the FCC had used the same unconstitutional process. So this isn't some obscure legal argument, it's already affecting major corporations. Now, here's where it hits home. Polonice filed his tax returns with the appeal. Over the past 3 years, his average income was under $16,000. He's living below the poverty line. Therefore, he asked the FCC to reduce the fine due to hardship. They refused, saying his long track record made the penalty appropriate, regardless of his ability to pay. And that's true. This isn't his first run-in with the FCC. He's been cited for unlicensed broadcasts before, dating back to at least 2012. His equipment was even seized by the US Marshals at one point. But even inside the FCC, there's some concern. Commissioner Nathan Symington actually voted against the fine, saying the Jarkessi decision creates real legal risk for the agency. FCC Chair Brendan Carr went even further, saying the agency's current enforcement model is on thin ice. He's openly warned that without reform, future fines could be struck down and the FCC could lose its grip on enforcement altogether. So what started as one man broadcasting an illegal radio station might end up reshaping how the federal government punishes people, not just in radio, but across every agency that finds Americans without a courtroom. So you see, this isn't about defending pirate radio. This is about whether you can be punished by a government agency without a trial. Now, let's talk about something that might affect your wallet and your living room sooner than you think. Right now, there's growing pressure on the FCC to mandate a national upgrade to something called Next Gen TV, also known as ATSC 3.0. And if that happens, millions of Americans may be forced to replace their perfectly fine working TVs, even if they just bought them. This warning comes from former FCC Commissioner Michael O'Reilly, who laid it all out in a new policy paper. His concern isn't just the tech, it's who pays for the transition and who actually benefits. ATSC 3.0 is a new broadcast standard. It promises better video and audio, targeted emergency alerts, and the ability to support data services. It's like the upgrade from analog to digital all over again, but with a lot more hidden costs. If this switch becomes mandatory, here's what that means for you. First, the FCC would have to declare our current TV standard obsolete, which means broadcasters would stop supporting it. Second, every new TV sold in the US would be required to include a next-gen tuner, raising prices across the board. Third, if you watch free over-the-air TV with an antenna, your current setup might just stop working outright. You'd need to buy new equipment or a converter box just to keep watching basic channels. And that's just the consumer side. Behind the scenes, broadcasters would be forced to overhaul their infrastructure even if their viewers aren't asking for this upgrade. And cable and satellite providers would need to spend millions on new gear to handle the new signals, or more than likely, pass that cost right along to you. Now, let's be fair, the tech does offer improvements like sharper picture and better sound. There's some actual potential here, but O'Reilly's point is simple. This isn't about serving the public. It's about unlocking new revenue streams for data services. The people pushing for this aren't asking, how do we make TV better? They're asking, how do we monetize every square inch of the broadcast? He argues that market demand, not government pressure, should drive this transition. If people want better TV, they'll buy the gear, and broadcasters will follow. But forcing it through regulation, that's when it becomes a burden. And let's be honest, we've seen this movie before. We had to switch from analog to digital, then we needed HD, then 4K, now it's next-gen TV. And every time, you end up buying a new TV, a new box, or some new cable just to keep things working. And here's the thing, even some broadcasters aren't on board because upgrading isn't free. And there's no clear sign that audiences even care. Most people are watching streaming content now anyway, which ATSC 3.0 doesn't directly address. So if this mandate goes through, it'll mostly serve companies looking to experiment with data services over public airwaves, not regular viewers flipping channels on a Saturday night. It's another case of solution in search of a problem, and if you're not careful, the problem becomes yours. Now, something a bit more concerning: if you live in a rural area and rely on local internet providers, there's a decent chance some of your connection is still running through Chinese-made equipment, and that's not just a tech issue, that's actually a security problem. This warning comes from FCC Commissioner Nathan Symington, our good old friend, who's been sounding the alarm about Huawei, the Chinese telecom giant that was banned from the US networks back in 2019. Now, banning it is one thing. Actually removing the gear, that's where the US dropped the ball. Congress ordered the purge 5 years ago, but they didn't fully fund the Rip and Replace program until late 2023. So for years, these systems stayed in place. As of today, much of that Huawei equipment is still active, especially in rural areas near sensitive military installations. The reason this is a big deal is because Huawei's technology has long been flagged as a potential backdoor for surveillance. The fear is that these systems could be phoning home to Beijing, quietly sending metadata, user behavior, or even infrastructure info overseas. And it's not just theoretical. Symington says investigators have found communications hardware embedded in Chinese-made solar panels. Now let that sink in. Even the solar panels may be transmitting data. He told the Daily Caller the solar panels have the ability to phone home just like ET. And the reason all this gear is out there in the first place is because Huawei was offering deals no American company could match. We're talking 0% financing for 60 years, basically free equipment. Just install it. So local telecom, especially in small towns operating on razor-thin margins, took the deal, because when you're choosing between cheap infrastructure and going bankrupt, you pick survival. But now the bill has come due. The original cost to remove this equipment was estimated at $1.9 billion. New projections are closer to $5.6 billion, and guess what? Many local providers can't afford to fix it on their own, which means that cost is either passed on to consumers or left hanging while the risk remains. Symington even suggested that Huawei targeted areas near military sites on purpose. Now, these are his words, not mine. He says that if an American company pulled this exact same stunt in China, the executives would be in shallow graves. And here's where it circles back to everyday people. If your internet feels unreliable, if your provider suddenly raise rates, or if you're told there's a service disruption due to network upgrades, this could be part of the story. It's not just about Huawei, it's about what happens when regulation is delayed and cheap tech solutions come with long-term consequences. So while we were arguing about TikTok and Chinese drones, the bigger vulnerability might already be installed on a pole in your neighborhood. So just when you thought your streaming apps couldn't get any more crowded, Trump Media has officially launched its own global platform. It's called Truth Plus, and it's being positioned as a conservative alternative to legacy media. The rollout just went live, and one of its first big moves was bringing on Newsmax, the cable news channel that went public earlier this year. Newsmax gets a wider international audience, and Trump Media gets a marquee content partner. It's a strategic win-win for both of them. But it gets more interesting. This isn't just another niche channel launch. This is a full ecosystem play. You've already got Truth Social as the company's social media arm. Now add Truth Plus to deliver video, live channels, on-demand content, political commentary, and eventually, maybe even original shows. They're not just chasing viewers, they're trying to build an alternative media universe. Right now, the Truth Plus app is available on basically every major platform: iOS, Android, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, and desktop browsers. So if you've ever looked at your smart TV and thought, you know what's missing? Another 24-hour political app. Well, Now you've got one more. Trump Media says they're still in beta collecting user feedback and stress testing the rollout, so expect some bumps and maybe a few rebrands depending on how the launch goes. But the ambition is clear. They don't just want a streaming platform, they want to own a pipeline that bypasses traditional gatekeepers. And let's be real, there is an audience for this. There's a group of viewers who don't trust mainstream platforms, who don't want to rely on YouTube or Netflix, and who want content aligned with their worldview. And of course, people that are just fans of President Trump and want to support him in any way they can. Truth Plus is built to serve that market. And if it sticks, we're going to see more of this. Ideological streaming ecosystems where your politics decide your platform. The question now is whether this becomes a major conservative hub like Fox Nation, or whether it fades into the background noise of forgotten streaming apps. Because this space is brutal. Ask Quibi. Ask CNN Plus. Even big names can't guarantee success. Truth Plus will need to balance loyalty with scalability, and that's not easy when your brand is built to provoke instead of appeal across the board. For now, it's live, it's international, and your remote just got one more button to ignore, or one more rabbit hole to explore. If you'd like more news stories like this delivered directly to your email, click the link right here.